Covering the surge in gun violence on BNC across the country, leaders in different cities are growing concerned as innocent victims caught in the crossfire pay with their lives. But what about those who survive? What about the bullets that forever change innocent lives? Our correspondent, Stephanie Bertini, brings us a personal story.
It was December 2017.
How old were you?
22 years old.
Racquel Amore was shot in the head, left paralyzed by a bullet that was never intended for her.
They gave me 72 hours to live.
She surpassed those grim expectations, even though living now is very different. Surviving a shooting that could have killed you, beating the odds, doesn't come easy.
I was depressed at one point.
And then?
I guess I got over it and said I'm alive, so I'm okay.
Her smile, her laughter, it comes from a profound understanding only the truest heartaches of life can teach.
I look at life different. I appreciate everything I have now.
It was a Wednesday night out with her friend and her cousin. At the same spot they went every week. Dressed up and having a good time, she took this video of herself before the violence would hit her.
They were fighting in the club, and then I guess they took things outside. And they go in to get the gun in the cars and come on and start shooting in the crowd. And when I was running with my friends, and I got hit right on the right side of my head.
The place where it happened was located in this strip mall in the South Florida city of Lauderhill. It's closed down since then, but the case is still opened. The Broward County Sheriff's Office never found who did it, at least not yet.
What would you say to the people that pulled the trigger? If you could talk to them, what would you say?
I would ask them why is that, if that was necessary. Look at my life now. I have a paralyzed left arm.
The shooting left her in a coma for months. She woke up in February 2018 in her new reality, using her faith as a crutch.
I'm nothing without my faith. I have to have faith in God. You know, God, He bring me this far.
Just over a year later, an unplanned pregnancy, another life-changing event.
Alexis Jade.
Alexis Jade is 18 months old.
How did Alexis change your life?
Oh, she just bring joy.
And that joy was followed by more joy. She met the man who would become her husband.
We just met and we just click.
A mother, a wife, and a student studying business now. So much has changed for Racquel Amore since that bullet. She says most days are good days, but some days in between are tough. And looking in the mirror is always difficult.
What do you think when you look in the mirror?
Why did you go?
That was just one story. There are so many others across this country, so many more examples of how surviving gunfire can change your life. I'm Stephanie Bertini for Start Your Day.
All right, Stephanie, yeah, so many times you hear about the physical harms that bullets, guns obviously do to a body. We talk about what happens when it comes to mass shootings in this country, and we have way too many of those. But also in our inner cities, we have these shootings that a lot of people don't ever hear about, nobody talks about, but they have a huge effect on our lives. And once again, not just from a physical standpoint, but from a mental standpoint as well. Personally, I've gone through things like that. Growing up in certain neighborhoods, I've been shot at in drive-by shootings. My best friend was killed in a drive-by shooting. My stepfather, the man who raised me, and I've said this many times before, and I'm not afraid to share this on the platform, he spent the last 9 years of his life in jail for murder for hire for having his wife killed at the hands of a gun. It's not talked about in national media. It's not talked about local media. It's not talked about a lot, but it happens in our neighborhoods, and it happens far too often. We talk about, once again, the mass shootings that happen across the nation when you hear them in a grocery store, in a bank, or somebody at a plant or whatnot. But we don't talk enough, and we bring it up, and they bring it up in terms to kind of dispel, to stop politicizing it from the right, when they talk about, oh, what about the black on black crime, which I don't think exists, because there's no such thing as black on black crime. You kill who's in your neighborhood. But we talk about the things that's happening in Chicago. That's way too much. So we have to do a better job of profiling these type of stories, letting people know that it not only has that physical effect, but that mental effect. And we need to start doing a better job and more about the type of violence that we're suffering in our communities at the hands of guns.
Right, and I think that
shoot 'em.
Oftentimes, Mike, and that's such a good point, there's secondhand trauma from witnessing such violence. There's so much of that that goes on, particularly in our communities. I just was reading that Mayor Bill de Blasio out of New York was talking about the surge of gun violence that they have had, the shootings that they've had. They've had more than 150 just in the last month, something like that. And they also, compared to last year, this time, their shootings are 70% up. You know, that is insane. So you think about not only the victims, like a 5th grader who was caught in some neighborhood dispute last weekend, and you think about what his family is about to go through right now, grieving. Then you think about his friends. You think about the schools. It's just, it's tragic. And I think, you know, the lack of action in Congress on gun control, with all these other things happening that we know about. We know that they've been talking about the commissions and all of these other things and infrastructure, but gun control cannot get lost in that because it affects the entire country. It affects so many families, like we just saw in Stephanie's piece. It affects the individual and their ability to move forward. But the innocent victims in this, I think that is something that's often not talked about. And thank you, Mike, for sharing, you know, your own experiences. You know, I think that takes a lot of courage and bravery.
No, well, it's just something that needs to be done, and it needs to be talked about a little bit more. And I'm glad Stephanie humanizes people, because we always see the statistics, but we don't actually see the faces and hear about the mental trauma that they have to go through. And I think that's a great point. And I like the way the story was told, not just because there's a story, it goes away, she heals from her wounds, whatever she's had, the physical issues. But once again, you talk about the PTSD that is behind that, and me actually seeing things like that in my neighborhood and still having the effects of that and how it affects my life to this day. But once again, having this platform, being able to talk about that type of stuff is what I'm here for, and I'm going to continue to talk about it, and we're going to continue to talk about it until we do something about it, until Congress and DC does something about it. But yeah, we got to do a better job. So I appreciate the story, Stephanie, and we'll continue to make things happen our way until we get the issues taken care of that need to be taken care of as well.